technique that we use in preparing the budget, especially in determining the way how to determine the allocation of the resources can be met. So, and then we classify into two groups, which is the first one uh, is we are not relate with the output provide, and the second which is not the output provide. Okay, so for today we will look how all what have been we discussed before being translated into practice. So therefore, we talk about the budgeting practice. And second, we will talk about the budgetary control instrument, which is we will deal with the um, books. Okay, so in practice, actually, budget can be prepared separately between revenue, expenditure. So we have a revenue budget, we have the expenditure budget. So, but at the end, in practice, the government prepare a total budget because it is useless to prepare once by one. So we prepare the total budget, and then when the government deliver the budget, the total budget at the legislative to get the approval. So not all the item in the budget are subject to the approval by the parliament. Only the budget that related with the Article 100 that subject to the approval by the parliament. The rest is not subject to the approval. This is solely under the purview of the executive. Okay, so we talk about the revenue budget, which is the revenue budget only consists of the revenue. And then we already understand that the revenue for the federal or for the state government, or in simple revenue for the government, only collected by a several agency, such as we see that if related with the direct tax, that is under the power of the IRB, while on the indirect tax under the other agency such as Royal Custom, Immigration, and so on. So therefore, in preparing the revenue budget, the Treasury as a secretariat of the financial matters will consult the revenue earnings department. So why they need to consult? Because they need to make a forecasting. So to make a forecasting on how much we anticipate the revenue that can be collected by the government. So collected by the government. The second is Treasury also will explore the possibility of the new sources of revenue. Like for example, if you remember for this year, um, during the presentation of the budget by the Minister, Senator Tengku Zafrul, so the government already identified the uh, possibility a new revenue, such as uh, the government will introduce the prosperity tax, windfall tax, um, and several other type of tax. There is a possibility, new sources for the government uh, based on the uh, tax and duties. Based on the tax and duties. Okay, so based on all that kind of information, so then the estimate revenue will be determined. That is how to determine and to prepare the revenue budget. And this is the format of the revenue budget for the single year. So which is uh, comprised of the revenue from the tax, non-tax revenue, non-revenue received, and revenue from federal territory. That is for the federal government, and then we get the total revenue. So that is the question is on the amount of the how to determine the amount. As I said, that it is based on the estimate. So estimate not just like what you have been prepared for. Some of you prepared for the proposal. So when I look on your proposal, when I check on the last part on the reference, there is no more reference. So means that you just prepare based on your mind. So and then how accurate your mind? That is another question. So in everything, so like for this example, even this is under the power of the finance minister, but in order to make it the accurate estimation, because it is useless, we just estimate and then we can put whatever amount we like, not based on the basis. So we need to have a basis. So what are the basis of the estimation of the revenue? That is, we are classify or group into based on the sources, which is if the revenue that generated through the tax, which is beside the existing tax, there is estimation we can make easily. But if the government feel there is very important for the government to increase the revenue due to the many things that need to be spent, so the government need to explore what kind of the source of the new sources of revenue, either in terms of the tax or in terms of the non-tax. Which is on the non-tax, there is several aspects maybe the government can create in order to ensure that we have enough revenue to cater all the spending that we can spend for the particular year. Okay, so this is still on the revenue budget. This is for the comparative year, which is we can prepare the estimate and then revise estimate, because if let's say like for example, this is a real case in the 2020 where in the 2020 the amount of the revenue sources that we estimate mostly come from the um, oil, that is from the petroleum, and then due to the economic situation where the petroleum price is going down, very significant, and then very different with the estimation, because during the estimation made, the price of the petroleum crude oil around 50 US dollar per barrel. And then we are one of the exporter of the crude oil. So, but in the year 2020, unfortunately, so the crude oil price in the market are going down until around 2018 to 20 US dollar per barrel. So you can see that how much different on that. It's around 30 US dollar per barrel. So which is um, if that matters, of course, the tax that collected by the government through the petroleum is very less. So therefore, the government when prepare the 2021 budget, they need to revise because to show that the changes are due to the uh, um, mistake or due to the problem in the estimation of that. Okay, so that is on the first one, revenue budget, and the second is on the expenditure budget. As I said, that budget can be prepared separately between the revenue and the expenditure. Okay, so for the expenditure budget, so budget for the expenditure we have two different group of expenditure: the operating and the development expenditure. Okay, so for the operating, so in preparing the budget, so it will start with the circular provided by the treasury to the government agency. So you can see that in preparing the uh, uh, operating budget is a little bit different as compared to when we prepare the revenue, because the revenue only several agency involved, and then the agency will provide that figure or that anticipate to the treasury. But for the expenditure, so expenditure, because all the agency, especially operating agency, they are the spending agency. So they set up the activity, the program, the objective of the agency, and then in order to achieve the objective, they are set up the program and the activity, and all the program activity need to be kettle, need to be kettle. So how to kettle? So they are seeking for the allocation from the budget, because they are not the profit center. They are only the cost center, which is they are responsible to implement all the activities and program they are expected to, they are planning to for the particular year in order to achieve the objective of that organization. So therefore, the budget for the operating especially need to be come from the agency. So the treasury only receive the detail about the um, item that and amount that are required by the agency in order to deliver their service. So in order to deliver their service. So therefore, you can see that it is start with the provide the circular to give the policy of the government, general policy of the government for that particular year. And then the second is based on that circular, the agency will prepare the anticipate or estimate operating expenditure according detail based on the guideline, object guideline under the FTC 1/1/2013. And then after that, the agency, all agency need to submit to the treasury what dia are required uh, to be spent for that purpose. And then upon the treasury receive that, so the next treasury will set budget hearing. So which is um, the treasury will call all the representative from the all the agency to sit together, um, which is for the purpose of the uh, discuss policy and issue on general and examine the justification given for the estimate proposal. This is, you can see that the proposal, which is the proposal, not what like you have done. The proposal must be detailed, complete, because there is, we call the proposal. The purpose of the proposal is to get the approval, because without the proposal, how can the committee at the budget hearing know what are the matters, what are the program, what are the amount they are required to. So therefore, they need to prepare the proposal and implication, and all in this matter will be present and discussed thoroughly in the budget hearing committee. So budget hearing committee that consists of the members in the treasury, that members of the budget office that we call the BRO, and then uh, the representative from all the agencies, from the all agencies. Okay, so after complete the budget review officer BRO, so after complete the hearing, the BRO will present the recommended operating expenditure budget estimate to the budget director at the finance minister. So that is how to get and how to be processed in preparing the operating budget. This is actually very different with the preparing of the revenue budget. Because why? First, you need to understand operating budget expenditure. They are subject to the approval by the legislative. That is the first. The second, they need to be accurate because it based on the appropriation. So if they not accurate, so what will happen? Because budget we are prepared for the whole year. What will happen? If not accurate, it may during the year, before the year end, so we have not enough allocation to spend for the activities they have planned to do. So, and then it will affect the government service toward the people. Okay, so after the budget review officer come with the conclusion and present the recommended operating expenditure budget estimate to the budget director, and then the next budget director will proceed to the finance minister. So at the finance minister, they will discuss and they finalize. After that, after the finance minister agree with all of that, so the proposed budget will be submitted to the cabinet, because in the cabinet there is the involved of the all the ministry, or sorry, all the minister and deputy minister, which is minister and deputy minister. They are represent their post of the each of the ministry. So because we already understand that ministry is the very highest level of in terms of the agency at the operating agency. So after the cabinet agree on that matters, so the next budget being tabled in the parliament, so to get the approval. Okay, so that is for the operating. So we look on the development. Development is a little bit different. So therefore, I provide differently in preparing the expenditure, because we can do simple like in terms of the revenue budget. Revenue budget is considered very simple, straightforward. But expenditure budget is a little bit strict and then very important to be detailed because it is affect the um, activity and program of the agency. If the agency set up a lot of program and activities, of course they need to have the allocation for the um, implement the activity. But if the allocation is not enough, how can they implement the policy? Okay, so next we look on the development um, budget. So development expenditure. Okay, so for the development, the important agency that involved is EPU. So because development are under the EPU, so they are not under the treasury. So which is in terms of the development, so we also have a fire Malaysian plan, which is you can see that there is the development plan for fires. So it is involved in the very long term, and then they need to go to the APU and then go to the NDPC, and then NDPC review on the matters and then approve ministry and department request appropriation for the development. So and then there is the process and as I said earlier, um, I just provide a very brief on the matters because on the development expenditure it is very difficult for us to give detail out of the matters due to the nature of the. Okay, so come with what we have discussed in the expenditure. So this is the um, general format for the federal government when preparing the expenditure budget. So which is we have the charge expenditure, supply expenditure. There is must be separate because why? Because the first one is under 98, the second one under 100. It need to be separate, not just put together because if put together, it is a problem when we want to get the approval letter. Okay, so operational budget, operational expenditure. Actually, this is we talk about the operation and then development budget. So, operational budget need to have a specific format. So format based on the FTC, which is if you look until 29, so Malaysian prepared for 2 years. For 2 years. So and then means that when we prepare the amount for 2022 together with the 2023. Okay, so this is the summary format for the operating expenditure. Sorry, for the total estimate expenditure. The total estimate expenditure budget 2021 summary format. And the summary format, you need to understand there is a summary format, there is a detailed format, and so on. So therefore, I always concerned about the format because in the government, they need to be standardized because the standardization is a method of the control. So as I said several times, control is a very crucial. One of the method or mechanism to control is through standardized format. which is we can treat equally. If we are not standardized, that is a very, very difficult to manage. Okay, so for the operating expenditure, so we have the charge expenditure, supply expenditure, and then development expenditure, and then detail out the development expenditure into two sources, direct and loan, which is the direct expenditure, which is direct expenditure come directly from the allocation from the consolidated fund, and for the loan is we make it uh, uh, um, um, the development expenditure being covered through the loan made by the government. And then you can see another one is under the development. This is a contingency under 103. So contingency under 103. Yeah? So which is the contingency, or in bahasa we call the luar jangka, kumpulan wang luar jangka, which is there is the trust account that purposely to cover when we facing the unexpected uh, uh, um, um, matters. So that is the purpose of the contingency. Okay, so this is another format, which is you can see that from the previous. Okay, so this is summary format, you can see, but summary format here is based on the total, total charge, total expenditure. Here is still summary because actually in the slide, all I show is a summary. Whether they are at the total, whether they are at the general object, whether they are at the standard object. So I didn't show the detail format of the budget because if detail, it is very, very lengthy. So detail, because detail you need to understand how detail based on the Treasury Circular 11/2013. So the detail is at the detail object. So you can see that in terms of the, for example, on tax revenue. So on tax revenue, we need to prepare that 4 different level until the tax revenue come from which sources. So therefore, all in the slide are called summary, but you need to be careful. Summary budget, it can be at the general object, it can be at the standard object, it can be at the detail group object, it can be a total. So depend on the question. If the question asks you to prepare the budget using summary format based on the standard object, you need to be prepared based on the standard. This is based on the general object. What we have shown here, this is a summary format based on the general object. General object. So why you see that we present on the general object, that is tax revenue, non-tax revenue, non-revenue received. If you want to more detail, you put the coding. Tax revenue is 60,000, non-tax revenue 70,000, non-revenue received 80,000, revenue from FT 90,000, and then on the expenditure, emolument 10,000, service and supply 20,000, asset 30,000, grant and fee charge 40,000, and other expenditure 50,000. So you can see that when you put the coding, so the code, you know, there is a 40, and then there is at the general object summary format. Okay, so this is for the state government. State government, actually, it is similar with the federal government. we have the same thing. This is on the summary format at the general object. Okay, so this is same thing at the summary format for the uh, um, federal government budget. Okay, and then this is the if you can see the statistic for the government, you can see the performance of our country in terms of the budget preparing. What I want to highlight here, if you can see that at the end is we are practice the deficit budget. Um, every year is deficit budget, which is the total revenue is less than total expenditure. But you can see that uh, even we prepare the deficit budget, the total deficit budget, but come to the operating budget, it must be surplus. So you can compare TR compare with the OE. OE operating expenditure. So means that you can see that in every year, even total budget is deficit, but operating budget must be surplus or at least balance. That is the requirement. There is the legal requirement. The government, whoever become a government, whichever party that form the government, they need to ensure that their operating budget must be surplus or at least balance. So it is useless if we are spending, because you can understand like what you look to the business. If your business income unable to cover the expenses, so what for you run the business? Better for you to close. Because if you do not run the business, you will get zero balance. But if you run the business, you get the negative, means that you lost. So that is useless. Similar to that, the government uh, operating expenditure must be at least balanced with the revenue. If not, it means that the government are very, very inefficient and ineffective. So it may due to the very highly cost they are incurred, or it may due to the very lesser in terms of the revenue. They are unable to generate the adequate revenue in order to manage the country. Okay, so this is a state government total budget format. So you can see on the state government um, total budget format. This is total budget. So which is include the development. So the development, you can see that the development, it comprised of the two part, which is we need to be split, not come together. So first development on the development of the state, and the second development related with the water supply. Because water supply are under the state. So therefore, you can see that those who are stay in Selangor, they are always facing the water problem. Because we can see that why it happened in Selangor, it happened in several states, not happen around Malaysia, because the water under the state power. Because therefore we discussed in the earlier topic about the power of the state, power of the federal, and then the joint power. So which is all the matters related with the land, river, water, forest, and so on. All we see that the matters related with the that is the natural resources. It is belong to the state because the state have the land. The federal they do have the geographical land. They are in terms of the name only. Okay, so this is the local government. So the local government actually they are prepared the same thing on the matters except for the development estimate. So you can see that for the development estimate, they are the third tier, which is the local government. They are the government agency. So the state government agency. So therefore, for the development, they need to get the contribution from the both federal and state. State need to be contribute, federal need to be contribute. Because why? Because this agency, you refer back to the what we have discussed before on the function. They have the two main function, obligatory and discretionary. So on the obligatory, they are related with the development. So the purpose of that agency is for the development. So in terms of the development, of course, they need to be supported by both state and federal. Because if the area do not develop, who should we blame? All the three need to be blamed, not just blame the local government. Because local government can say that how can we develop this area because we don't have enough fund. So the fund need to be come from the state and from the federal because any area which is have a problem in terms of development, it not just represent the area, but it represent the whole country. Okay, so that is on the format presentation, which is that is the presentation budget, as I said that in present the budget at the legislative. So the budget need to be present at the detail. So must be detailed, not summary like what I have shown here. But as I said that due to the consideration of that matters, I am unable to show you a detailed budget. If you are interested, you can get directly from the particular um, agency. For example, for the state, you can request the budget for the state. They have a budget document book. For those who are in UUM, if you want to look, you go to my room. I have several copies of that matters. For the federal government, you can request from the treasury, but it is a very lengthy pages. I think last time they prepared, I get from one of my students, it is around 1,000+ pages. Because everything is detailed. There is the detail, not just the format, but it come together with the justification, elaboration of the all the activity and what kind of the output they need to be produced, what kind of the impact they can generate from the spending they have made related with the activities and program they are set up. So there is the real budget that have been prepared and present to the legislative. Why? Because as I said, that the main purpose is to get the approval. So if you want to get the approval, of course you need to be convinced that particular institution. So in that case, is the parliament, which is we need to convince the parliament to approve what we have prepared. If we prepare a very lesser, of course, a lot of question will be raised, and then they have reluctant to approve. Okay, so the next stage is after the budget being prepared and then tabled in the parliament. They need to go through all the process at the parliament, and at the approval. So the complete annual estimate of the federal government present in the parliament, only the appropriation expenditure need to be debated. So means that the government prepared the total budget, and then inside the total budget, we have the two part, the revenue and the expenditure. And then on the expenditure, we have two part, the operating and the development of the year. And then on the operating, we have the supply and charge. So in all, only the supply expenditure that being debated. So not the charge expenditure, because charge expenditure, it is not subject to the parliament approval. You can see that Article 98. So therefore, we discussed this in earlier stage for you to understand, why we just looking on the appropriation expenditure. So, and then you need to understand what mean of the appropriation. And this is, you can see the appropriation is based on the estimate. So while on the charge expenditure, they are not based on the estimate, because this is a fact and figures. So therefore, they are not subject to the debate and approval. This is fact and figures. So like charge expenditure is, we talk about the grant and fee charge, one of the item under the charge expenditure. So grant to the state. So grant to the state, we need to be referred to the 109. So 109, you mentioned that there are several type of the grant that need to be delivered by the federal to the state. So among that is capitation. So how to calculate capitation? This is the basis of the number of the people for that particular state, and then plus and then multiple with the percentage of the with the percentage provided. So which is based on the head. So let's say the percentage is 5%. So there is 5% multiple with the number of the population. How to get the number of population? This is provided by the statistic, because the statistic department will conduct from time to time. Therefore, we know the statistic of the how many people are in Malaysia. That is the population of Malaysia, and then through the population of Malaysia, we get the population from the state. So there is the fact and figures. So, but for the appropriation, this is talk about the supply. Supply is depend on the program and activities. So therefore, it we relate back to the budget system. So we have a lot of the activities need to be implement. Let's say from the Ministry A, Ministry B, until the Ministry 30. So out of the ministry, they have several department and they have several agency. So all of this come with them, their own activity. So based on their own activity, therefore we need to be set up the hearing and so on to ensure that which activity are make it priority, which activity do not give priority. So this is related with the budget system, which is under the LIBS, for example. We talk they are not based on the priority of that matters, but based on the PPBS, based on the OBB. The priority are given to this particular aspect of the expenditure. So therefore, this is subject to the appropriation because it may different views from the government with the members of the parliament. So there is different views on that matters. Okay, that is the first. The second, parliament only have a power, either only have two choice, either approve or reject. So the parliament have no power to make amendment. Let's say we say that the executive propose to spend for the operating 100 billion. But during the debate, majority of the members of the parliament feel that 100 billion is too much. By right, only 80 billion the parliament will approve. So if like that, there is no way. The parliament only have two options, either to approve 100 billion or to reject. There is no amendment of that. The amendment are based on the executive power. If let's say the proposed 100 billion being rejected by the parliament, what next? The next is the executive need to be prepare a new budget, and then they need to table a new budget, and then it's subject to the parliament to approve. So that is the power of the parliament. So they have no power to make amendment, but they have only have a power to reject or to approve. Okay, and then after all the process and procedure in the parliament, which is need to go through both House, HOR and HOS, and then the let's say everything is smooth, clear. So the next is the bill pass, and then proceed to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for royal assent. And then by the first week of the January, the budget for the budget year, the general warrant will be issued by the Minister of Finance or Finance Minister. So Finance Minister, they will issue the warrant to the Accountant General. Why? Because you can see that Finance Minister, this is the executive. Accountant General, this is the public service. This is the public service or government service, government servant. So because implementation need to based on the government servant, that is we call the government machinery, not the administrator. This is finance minister, this is a government administrator. You refer back to the individual question that I have been raised on the public service, who are under the public service, who are not considered as a public service. Okay, and then the next is budget will be proceed to the execution phase. So go to the execution phase or implementation phase. Okay, so this is the execution. So at the execution, which is budget will start when the accountant general receive the general warrant, and then the next is accountant general will distribute the warrant to responsibility center. So this is the starting of the execution, which is the role of the accounting officer and controlling officer will be start. So this is the CO must be ensure public money collected, properly safeguarded, payment proper and authorized. See, all this talk, we talk about the implementation aspect. And then back to the um, power and authorized. So who have a power to, who need to be authorized to, who need to responsible to. So all this matter at the execution. And the important thing at the execution is the control. Here is we start the budget control. The main element in the budget execution is the control, while the main element at the budget formulation is the planning. So we planning. So therefore, in the first part, we talk about the more on the focus on the planning. So in the second part, focus more on the control, on the control. Okay, so this year CO, who are CO, controlling officer. So CO appointed by the Ministry of Finance, and then this is the responsibility of the CO. So to his own minister, his responsibility is to his own minister. So because at the end, the budget will be go to the responsibility center. Who are responsibility center? So it come with the highest. The highest is ministry. So ministry, we have a ministry, department, and then we have the agency. So other agency, uh, uh, um, public enterprise, and so on. So therefore, um, 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 controlling officer, they are sitting in the each of the department or agency under the ministry, under the ministry. Okay, and then the second thing on that matters, you also need to understand that in the budget implementation, each department or each responsibility center, they need to be spent based on the purpose and object expenditure approved. Because this is what we say that budget as an act. In the public sector, budget is not only as a document, what we call the planning or control document tools. Not budget as a management tool, but budget is also the legal requirement. Legal requirement means that upon approved, so spending must be made based on what has been stated in the budget. Let's say the budget purpose, this is the purpose for the emolument, 10 million. So 10 million need to be spent for the purpose of the emolument. We can spend over or we can spend under than that. So we can spend for the other purpose. We just need to be spent for the stated and approved purpose. So any violation of that matters, this is again the law. And then the CO, because this is all under the CO, controlling officer. Therefore, we need to understand who are CO, what are their responsibilities, what are their power. So because it's effect, the power and the responsibility need to come together. You have a power, you need to be responsible. So anything happen, this is your face the implication of that. Okay, so the basic is what have been approved based on the head of the here this is the old term, but the new term is called the object, book object. So based on the object, if the object is for the 10,000 code emolument. So we need to be spent on the 10,000 code. And then the authority to wire is the treasury prerogative. This is talk about the environment under the section 15 A, 15A on the environment. That is come on the environment. Environment come during the budget execution, because budget execution. So when we have let's say plan and implementation normally have a variance. So how to deal with that? It is not too straight on that matters, because we also understand the planning are subject to several things. And then during the implementation, of course, there is some loopholes, some difference due to the controllable and uncontrollable factors. So therefore, we have one way to deal with that. That is, we call the environment mechanism. So therefore, you need to refer back to the section 15A. Section 15A from your rules and regulation, you refer to the FPA. Therefore, I say that when we discuss, you need to have together with you the rules and regulation. When I quote that, you need to refer and then look, because when you want to answer the question, when you want to make a project, for example, you know what are the related of that matters. Okay, so you refer back to the section 15 on the page 21. Not 15A, but 15 on the estimate environment. So this is the procedure, and then the mechanism how to deal with the implementation and the planning. Okay, so this is the environment procedure and process. So, and then here you can see that there is controlling officer. Please don't ask me who are the controlling officer, because we already talked before. Controlling officer, what are their power, and then the responsibility of the controlling officer. Okay, so this is the procedure on the environment. Not all of the expenditure can meet environment. So they are subject to the several prerequisites. For example, environment must exclude the emolument cost, capital financing, depreciation, contribution, and grant expenditure. So in simple, all the matter related with the 10,000, related with the 40,000, this is not subject to the environment. Why? Because as I said that this is more toward fair and figures. Fair and figures, they are not subject to the appropriation. And then transfer environment in capital budget allocation are only permitted when within specific action plan. And then no environment are permitted in the first 3 months. So let's say for the budget 2022, so environment can be made after um, March. So means that April we can make environment, but before that we can't make environment. So approved environment does not give expenditure on that matters. And then all this matter, this is a theoretical. On the practical, that is under the budgetary control. It is, if you look, okay, so let me look on the budgetary control purpose, and then this is the budgetary control on the legislative control, which is all this matter is on the control by the budget, and then executive control. This method you refer to the textbooks, page 168 to 178, on the how to deal with the uh, environment and the case of the environment. We have the environment in, we have the environment out. So you need to refer to this page and then you read for yourself of this page. As I said that this semester I will not emphasis on the uh, books procedure. So what are the books procedure? That is the purpose to first give you the way how to treat the um, budget record. So budget record. So because we have the commitment basis. When we talk about the accounting in the public sector, there are four base, which is commitment, cash, modified cash, and also the accrual base. And then in every time, government are prepared or adopt two base, commitment base with what? A cash base with modified cash base with the accrual base. So commitment base is a compulsory for the government. So commitment record on the commitment being made through books. So therefore you need to refer to the page 168 to 178 on the books, which is very detailed on that matters. Okay, so there is some of the issue on the operational budget, which is the issue. This is we will discuss in detail in the topic issue later. But this is on the issue. First issue is always facing with the insufficient budget allocation. So as usual, when we talk about the resources, we have two extreme consequences. First, we have a limited resources, but we have unlimited desire. So we want to do everything, but we have a limitation of the resources. So due to the limitation of these resources, what we have planned normally not all approved. Or they are approve the activity, but the resource they are limited. They are provide a lesser than what we have looking for. So this is we call the insufficient budget allocation. So if the case, how to deal with, how to deal with. The second is issue on the implementation, which is implementation spending not in accordance with. Normally, when we talk about the spending, if we want to follow all the procedures, sometimes it's we call that uh, um, very tidy. So sometimes we are with the purpose of that matters. So that is talk about the procurement procedure. So if we need to follow all the procurement procedure, it may be with the purpose. For example, we are very urgent to get and so on. Administrative procedure. So administrative procedure such as you need to apply before how many days you need to be applied, and then how many days you need to wait for the approval. Later on, you need to do is all this matter. And then another issue is spending without allocation. How can it happen? But that is the reality. And then the most cases is spending exceed budget allocation. Spending may exceed budget allocation. There is all this matter from where we get it. This is we get from the result examined by the auditor. When auditor examined, they found all this matter been happen and then they are reported in the audit report. So therefore, why we need to have audit? And then audit found that this is among the issue related with the operational budget, and then how to tackle this matter. So access, supply, additional budget procedure, contingency fund, government strategies. So all this we will talk in thoroughly, inshallah. We discuss the topic 11 on issues. Okay, so with that, that's all for our topic today. And then hopefully on Thursday, we will move to the financial accounting practice, which is we refer to the books volume 2. So please get books volume 2 book, because for this semester we give emphasis on the accounting record. So not the budgeting record. This is the budgeting record. When we talk about the books, this is the budgeting record. So not budget document. Budget document is what we have taught before. But this is the budgeting record. Record in the budgeting. Record related with the budgeting, which is we talk about the commitment-based accounting record. So the next is we talk about the financial accounting, which is record on the budget implementation. Budget execution, budget implementation means that we talk about the actual spending. Actual spending for the purpose of the reporting. Budgeting record is for the purpose of control. That is for the purpose of control, to make the environment, to ensure that there is no exceed of the allocation and so on. This is for the control. So please read the chapter 1, bio B, focus and emphasis on page 5. You look on the diagram on the page 5. Please try to understand on the diagram, and then later on you read starting with the page 23 until the page 35. Until the page 35. That is, we focus on the federal government using MCB, modified cash base. So please read. This is very important. If you do not read, you do not feel the difficulties of that, and then you will trouble. So I hope you take note this matter, and then see you on the next meeting on this coming Thursday. Okay, so with that, that's all for today.